Welcome to this Appsmith live streaming event. We are about to get started and our host and guests are getting ready behind the scenes, testing the audio, making sure they look good on camera, but more importantly, getting prepared for your questions. But while you wait, feel yourself at home. Get some coffee or water and make sure to be comfortable to start learning and growing. In case you don't know what Appsmith is, hey, that's totally fine. We distinguish ourselves as the most powerful open source low-code platform, enabling developers to transform ideas into reality with unmatched speed, security, and efficiency. From small startups to large enterprises, Appsmith allows you to build enterprise applications that solves real business problems. You can build internal tools and dashboards connecting to more than 30 data sources, such as databases, SaaS platforms, or APIs. Then, build fast UIs using the drag and drop widgets from our large collection. And finally, define your business logic using JavaScript. If you are an experienced developer, you can build custom widgets with your preferred frameworks like React, Vue, or Angular. We literally support any JavaScript library and framework out there. But if you don't know how to code, that's fine. You can still connect your existing platforms like Salesforce, Google Sheets, or HubSpot and build incredible dashboards, reports, and apps without writing code. Alright, I got confirmation that our host and guests are prepared to get started. So say hi on the chat, start the conversation already, and let's kick things off. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Appsmith live streaming event. I'm in a complete different setup today, as you can see. So please let me know if you hear something strange, if you don't hear me well. But I'm more than excited about this event that is happening today. This is completely live. All right. I'm also here. I'm also there. And I am extremely excited about this event. Before we kick things off and bring Joseph into the table and explain how this is going to happen, let me remind you about something that we published just this week and you might not heard about it. Let me bring this image right here. It's about a summer launch event. So this Appsmith build is going to be happening next June 19th. It's going to be a virtual event and we'll focus on three main topics. The first one is performance. We'll go hands on the best practices and demonstrations to run faster and more efficiently any Appsmith workload. Also, we'll talk about managing versions, Git, everything related to source control, branches, deployments inside Appsmith, etc. And lastly, we'll cover software development lifecycle integrations. We know that's really important when it comes to enterprises. So we'll talk about self-hosting, distributed local development, continuous integration and delivery, pipeline, CI/CD, and much more. So RSPP, go to our website. It's completely free. And yeah, you're going to learn a lot. So what's happening today? So what we have today is something new that we wanted to try, which is try to bring you on the table, try to involve you in these live streaming events. We know that what Joseph explains normally and what I try to explain, it's well polished, it's well produced, but we know that's not the case for all type of development. We know we have to debug, we know sometimes we have errors, and not everything works as expected. So the idea of today is actually that try to have unexpected scenarios, something that is not working and we don't know why, and help you with the tools that you can use inside Appsmith for debugging. And we would like you to help us to debug. And if you know how to solve it, let us know in the chat. We'll try your recommendation or your option. And then if you are correct, we're going to send you some swag immediately. So that's the whole idea. Today is all about the comments. We would like you to participate on the comments. Don't be shy. Let us know what are you connecting already and we'll read the messages. All right. So that's it. Let me bring Joseph into the conversation. Hey, Joseph, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing great. Let
Nice
me
setup, man.
yeah, try something new today. Um, so, Joseph, that's the whole idea. Not sure if we want to go over the first scenario or you want to explain to us a little bit about what's going to happen first while we get people commenting on the chat?
Yeah, so normally when I'm doing a tutorial or demo, I try to throw in a little bit of debugging. I don't want to take the perfect happy path and make everything just work perfectly, and then you go to try it and you're running into errors. So I try to mix in a little bit of that. But today we're going to just focus on the errors and debugging. So we're not really building anything. We just have an app with a bunch of errors, and I'm looking for some feedback and input from the community here. We'll try something, run a query, or look at a error log, and just we're going to use clues. We're going to see what the response is, see what the error message says, and then see if anybody in the community can guess the problem. And we'll try to resolve that error, go on to the next one, and we're going to give away some swag while we're doing it.
Excellent. That sounds terrific. So I just bring the chat into our conversation here. So please, if you're joining us and you don't know what this is, basically we're doing live coding. We'll set up some issues or some not working applications, and then if you give us a response and it actually works, well, basically you'll win swag. Joseph, let's go over the first thing. Let's go over the first situation we got.
Sure. Yeah, it looks like we've got several already watching here. I'm seeing quite a few joining right now. So we're going to start with the first error here. Before we get an error, I want to run just a basic query here to show the data structure, what it is that we're working with here. So there's a table I'm using from Supabase, and it has 2 million records. So I'm definitely running the limit here if I'm just going to query all fields, right? Like there's no way I could just run it and query everything at once. But I know that the data source is working. I'm getting data back. So this is working fine. Now what I'm trying to do is just pick a couple fields and build a report. And as soon as I started going from this select all with the asterisk to individual fields, I started getting errors. So we're going to start out with just trying to get 2 fields here, region and item type. And you can see right here on this other one, I have a region column, item type, right? So it's not like a spelling error or anything, but when I run this, so I'm not getting anything back. And let me make sure you can see the errors here. Okay, so here's the first one. If I just put a asterisk here, it works fine. But trying to get these 2 specific columns, there's something wrong with there. So not really sure where to go next on this. We're looking for some input from the community. Kevin, can you keep an eye on the chat, or are we? Should I pull that up and call on somebody? How do you want to take feedback?
Yeah, sure. So this is the first error. Let me go full screen so people can see the full error. There you go. And we're gonna keep this image on the screen because we know that sometimes the live stream can be a bit off. So we're gonna keep it for a couple of minutes, and if you see the error right now on the screen and the query we're doing to our database and you know how to fix it, let us know, because right now it's not working. I mean, we kind of know that there is a region column, but we don't know why exactly it's not pulling that information. So I'm gonna be bringing also the chat here in case somebody's gonna send us a message and you know how to fix it. We're going to give it a few minutes. But before we do that, we go over like the solution in case nobody wants to give us a hint. Let's talk about the Appsmith monthly contest. Joseph, that's always happening, right? The monthly contest is always on. Every month there's a topic. So can you let us know what this month topic is about?
Sure. Yeah, actually today or tomorrow's the last day, but the May contest is on developer tools. So every month we have a different topic, and then you can submit any type of content you want that fits that topic. At first, we were only doing templates because we had just launched our community template library as a way for people in the community to upload a template that other people can fork, and it's not locked to just your account. It's putting it out there publicly. However, that's not always the easiest thing to do with data sources. You might not want to, make your data source public, even though you've built a cool app you want to share. So we've opened up the contest to any type of content. It can be a video, a written tutorial. you could build the app and then just take some screenshots because you can't share the data source, right? So we want to make it a little more open and flexible and accessible, just to see what the community is building. And every month there's a different topic. So we've got 1 day left for the developer tools, and then we'll be starting a new topic for next month. You'll have to wait and see what that is, though. We don't announce it ahead of time.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. Participate, everyone. I mean, don't be shy. Any type of contribution, it's great because, first of all, you'll learn in the process. And second, you'll be able to win some swag and obviously have some recognition in our monthly newsletter, for example. So, Joseph, I just put on the screen a message from, sorry, Don Dries Jr.
Mm-hmm.
He sent something. I don't know if you can see it on the screen. Select
Yeah.
region, item type coded. Do you think, can we try this and see if that make it work?
Okay. So I see that he's added some backticks there or quotes. So right here on the table, we'll try the backticks first. It looks like that's what he had. I'm going to run that just to see what we get. And so now it says syntax error at or near, and then it's that first backtick. So it does not like that character. We could try single quotes. Column region does not exist. That's the same error we got the first time around. So I'm going to take that off. So it doesn't seem like it's a quote issue on the item type yet. We're getting an error on the word region. So I'm going to try here if we do single quotes. Now it says column item doesn't exist. So we're still getting different errors, right? But there's a certain way that the database interprets these commands. When you type everything in and it's parsing through everything, it's looking for certain keywords, like select and from, and then it knows the things in between there should be column names. So it's got something to do with that. I think he was pretty close with that last suggestion. One thing we haven't tried yet here is double quotes.
Yeah, let's try that one.
And I just saw his comment. Maybe they all need to be commented. So what I'm going to do here is with the double quotes, let's see if we get, actually, I'm going to do no quotes. So we get back to our first error. And the first error that we were getting there, maybe I did that too quick. It's going to time out on me. But it was saying that region wasn't defined. There it is. So region lowercase. Okay. The actual column name is uppercase, and so is, in the data source and in my query. They're both uppercase. But for some reason here, the response in this error says that column region lowercase is not defined. So if we put some double quotes around here, now I'm getting a different error. Okay, this is progress. It's still an error.
Progress.
But what's going on here is the back end, the database management system, there's like this query language that's defined, and it assumes every table and column name is going to be lowercase unless you put those double quotes. Has to be double. In a lot of programming things in JavaScript or whatever, if you're working with strings, you can use single or double quotes or backticks. SQL is different. It's very specific, and there's totally different uses for single and double quotes. So it looks like we have solved the casing issue there, the capital, but we still have a new error now. Item does not exist. So what's going on here? This is the next error. We fixed the capitalization here by wrapping it in double quotes, but now we're getting item does not exist. Let's see. Please add a public prefix. Okay.
Yeah, the public prefix.
Yeah.
You think that will make it work?
So we can say public dot item. I
think Oscar is saying to the sales, to the table name, not to the column. Public dot sales, like right before the limit.
Okay. Let's see what this does. Same error, column item does not exist. So I'm going to remove that. And I think it's something to do with quotes still, but it's not the same situation. It's here it says just the word item instead of item type.
Okay, so we're getting also from Don Rees to wrap both column names in double quotes, not only region but also
Okay,
item type.
let's see. Oh, and then I left public here instead of sales. Okay. Hey, now we're getting somewhere. All right. So
All
the
right.
query is working again, and these are two different cases here, two different reasons that we need quotes. This one is actually 2-in-1. It is uppercase and it has a space, whereas this one only needed quotes because it is uppercase. So when you're working with table and column names that have uppercase characters or spaces, you have to use those double quotes. You can get by without them if it's all lowercase and there's no spaces. If you use underscores instead of spaces, then you won't have this issue. But these are similar, but two different reasons here that we need quotes.
So can we say that Don made it work with his recommendation?
Yeah, the double quotes, that was it.
Okay, so there you go. That's the first solving. Don, you just won a exclusive swag because of this recommendation that made it work, which is great. Thank you so much, Don. If you don't have a community portal user, you will need to create one because we will grab from there your address to send you this swag. But if you do, we'll reach out or let us know in the chat what your email is, or let us know on Discord where your email is, and we'll get your information from the community portals to ship some swag right immediately. So Joseph, this thing about the quotation, it's something that you have written any type of article in the community portal that maybe we can relate to?
Yes, I do have a post on the portal that talks about the single versus double quotes with Postgres. I'm not sure if you can share a link there for that, or we can put it in the description here. There you go. You got it ready. Cool. Yeah, so that's a post I wrote on the portal not too long ago, and it goes into more detail about this. But the way I like to remember it is that if you are referring to a table or column name, you need double quotes. So I remember it double table, and then single for strings. So when you're looking at a value that you're passing in, like, does this column equal this value? The value is a string, that's single quotes, and tables or column names are double quotes. So that's the first error. We got our solution there. I've got a kind of related one before we go on from SQL here. There's one more thing I want to check out. So we saw that uppercase characters in the column name is an issue, and a space. That was another issue here. But I have this group column, and I was trying to get it to work earlier, and I'm getting an error there as well. But that is not uppercase. There's no spaces, so this should work. But it says syntax error at or near group. So what's going on here now? It is not a space or an uppercase issue. Any clues? Anybody in the community know what the issue could be with this one that's different than the other two?
Yeah, let's give it a few minutes on the chat, because yeah, I think it looks good. I mean, the column name is group, and we would like to pull group. We don't need quotation in theory for this, but yeah, anyone on the chat, if you want to give us a hint about what the error could be, because yeah, it seems that it's not pulling the group.
Okay. See, is there a new comment there, or you just put up all the old ones?
Let's see. I think I'm just pulling all at once. Let me hide this. No new message yet. We had some delay, obviously. So let's still give it a couple of minutes to see if somebody has a idea of why this query is not working. syntax error at or near group position. If you go back to the table, Joseph, can we just take a look and see if, yeah, we do have a group
Yep.
column. It's the name of
And
the.
there it is. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, let's try some quotes on it, even though we
All right.
don't know the exact issue, just to see if that works.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it looks like that did it, but it's not, it still didn't explain it. It's not uppercase. There's no space. So why does this one need quotes?
Hmm.
Did we stump them already?
Ah,
Because
we have
hey,
some.
somebody got it. All right.
There
Sandra.
you go.
Yes. So the issue here is different. The solution's the same. So I wanted to kind of show all these together. But the reason this one isn't working, it's nothing to do with the uppercase or a space. This is an SQL reserved word. It sees the word group without quotes, and it's expecting that to be followed by the word by. Group by, is a SQL command where you would tell it you're going to give it some field and you want it to group all the data by that field. So for us to use group as a column name, it needs quotes so that it does not get interpreted as a database command.
So we got Sanjiv's Robotic Studio. He gave the correct answer to this, and it's because it's an SQL command group by command. That's true. We cannot use that group, although the table name is group, and it should work with any other name, but not group because it's a reserved word in
Yep.
SQL. So
And
the
there's
same Sanjiv's. If you want to send us a message on Discord with your community portal user, or if you don't have a user in the community portal, go to community.appsmith.com, create a free user, put your address, and we'll ship a nice package over there. That's great, Joseph. I think this is moving pretty nice. I like this idea.
okay. I've got another one now. We're going to add in some bindings, so it's not just SQL.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do here is, let me show you the input first. Okay, I have a table of data here, and I don't want to just search on a single column. I want to be able to pick a column and then say, search the region column where this string, maybe I'll just type like EU and expect to get, any matches there, right? So it's a little more complex than just passing in a single input for the value. I'm also passing in the column name. Now, if we come over here and check out the binding, it looks like it's working right. So the first parameter here that it's inserting, it is from my radio. I have a radio widget, and its selected value there is showing region. So the column I'm searching where region equals, and then the input. And if it happens to be blank, I have this extra or. So either region equals this input, or it's blank, or the input search text is blank. And let me see, give me just a second. I don't want to show the answer here. It's working because the last time I edited this, I fixed it.
It's okay. It's okay. While you do that, let me bring another QR code in case you want to read more about. Um, oh, not about this one. You want to sign up um, for the community portal in case you don't have any user in the community portal and you're watching this. You might win some of the swag that we're going to be sending. Create a user in the community portal, put your address over there. And it's not only because of that, it's because we are creating constantly articles, videos, announcements as well. The Appsmith team, the tech team is normally publishing new announcements. So being part of the community portal is as important as being part of the Discord channel, where you also have support, where we can answer your questions, and where we also have some Appsmith power users, some Appsmith heroes, some Appsmith community members like Oscar, who's right now watching our live stream, and he's constantly also creating articles, responding to questions, and we also have some chats in some specific languages. We have the Spanish language chat, we have the French one, I think. We also have a lot of users in Portuguese. So step by Discord, say hello, also create a user in the community portal in case you haven't, and you're gonna be prepared not only for this but also for the monthly contest and for this summer. I mean, sorry, for every quarter launch event that we do. So, Joseph, are you ready?
Okay. Yeah. So what I wanted to show here, instead of the error, because like it's tough to actually, in this case, it's kind of tough to get the error to come up. I maybe need a more complex example. So I just kind of want to talk about this setting here before we go on. Prepared statements. So this setting here, this prevents SQL injection. Normally you want to have this setting on. If you can get things to work with this on, then just leave it because that's a lot safer. Okay. If you're getting an error when you're doing stuff like this, where you're passing in different values, and it's not just the value of a string that you're checking against or a number. We're talking about a field name where field name equals. And right now it's actually working for me. I thought I had a case where it was an error. Maybe this is it. But prepared statements, this is going to help you avoid the chance of SQL injection, which is where somebody, instead of just this input string here, instead of them typing in the input the country they want to search, they could type something malicious like drop table users. You know, they could tell it to delete something, and without prepared statements, it's just going to read that and do whatever it says. If you use prepared statements, it'll look at that exact same string and it will treat it just like a string instead of it getting interpreted like a database command. So it's kind of like earlier where we had to use quotes so that the word group did not get interpreted as a database command. This is kind of the opposite. It's taking the string that they're injecting, that they're trying to make work like a database command, and forcing it to only work like a string so that it can't do those extra malicious actions. So one thing you'll have to do here with these bindings is, you need double quotes still outside of the double curly braces, and then single quotes like this. And I swear I had a setup here earlier that was giving me the error, but it seems like with or without prepared statements, this query is working. I need a different approach of passing in the value. So
we're
keep that in mind.
Trying to make it fail and still working.
I know, yeah. Prepared statements, it definitely helps you out here. And I thought I had a case earlier. This was a last minute one I added in. So I got an error trying to produce an error. I can't actually make it fail this time around, but I wanted to mention the setting at least. This comes up a lot where you're trying to do pass in a value and it's not recognizing it as a valid query, and then you turn this off. It'll work. Just keep in mind that, what are you passing in here? Are you letting somebody type anything they want? That could be dangerous possibly. But if you're passing it from a drop down or radio buttons like this, then the user doesn't get a chance to type anything. So you can safely turn it off. Just keep in mind how you're using it and what's being passed in there.
Yeah. So can you go back to the query just a second? Because I have a question. So I see in the where statement you have double quotes, but after the equal you have single quotes. Can I use any of those at any moment, or is there any specific place where should I be using double or single?
Yeah, I'm using double for the table and column names. So this could be hard coded to where region equals or where country or whatever, just like we did in the first example, and we had to use double quotes because it was a table name. I'm passing in a dynamic value, but I still need to use this the quotes because it's referring to a table name. It's just not a hard-coded string.
Right.
So
well, I mean, I've also struggled with use prepare statement before, and I think it's good to call that out to understand what it is.
I last minute I'm like, we should cover this too, and I thought I had an error and had a good example, but it's this one's actually working either way. So It's something you'll come across eventually, though. So that's it for the SQL stuff. I don't want to spend too much time on that one. We're about halfway through. So now we're going to switch over to some more UI focused and JavaScript stuff. So let's see, that's the SQL one. Here, this is a fun one. I've got a table of data here, and one column is a nested object. There's their address with every property inside of an object here. And I have some very similar data down here, but it's a different data source. So just contact info and the address column is an object in both cases. Now, with this first table, I can go to the address field here. We'll go into the settings for this one column, and I'm going to just get the city. Okay, and that works fine. All I have to do is use dot notation to go inside that object, and every address has that dot city, and there it is. It works fine. I tried to do the same thing on this table though, and it's not working. It's like almost identical data. It's, you know, slightly different values, but it doesn't have any effect. There's city, state. It's not doing anything. It's like the exact same approach and similar data, but this one doesn't actually update. So any ideas from the community there? I think I saw a message just come through.
Not right now. We just got a message from Oscar saying that this is a nice session and he had to go, but good luck to everyone. That means, Oscar, you won't be winning any swag today. But he has a lot of it already.
Cool.
So yeah, let's keep it the screen here so everyone can see what we're showing. So at the end, what we got is an object with data about the address, and we just want to show the state. So in theory, by accessing the property that state of the current row address property, we should be able to see it, but we're not. Are we getting any error message from Appsmith, like in general over there?
Okay. Well, if I click in here, you can see the this field kind of has that red border, and the table widget itself has an error in it. And then right here it says current row address is undefined. So it works on the top table, but then trying to do the exact same thing down here, it says current row address is undefined. So I'm using the dot notation to access that nested property. We could try bracket notation. Let's see what that does. We'll do a bracket and then quotes, and then I can get rid of the dot because we're using bracket notation. Okay, same error, current row address is undefined. Just want to make sure that bracket notation works up here. See, that works. That should work. This is, it's an object, the current row. It has an address object property in there, and then go down to drill down to the city. So it works up here, but not on the bottom one.
Right. So it doesn't seem to be a syntax error, right?
Right. Yeah, it's valid code. I'm not like typing something weird that, you know, that shouldn't work. So what is different here? I want to go back to dot notation since that didn't make a difference. Okay. So I think we can go ahead and solve this one if we don't have any guesses.
So Don is asking if he can answer more than one. I said yes.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So let's see if Don has some sort of idea of what's going on in there. But
Okay.
it seems to be fine. Like in the upper table it works, in the lower table it doesn't work. The JSON is valid because I mean, if not, we wouldn't be seeing it. So what Don is saying is to add or NA at the end. There are some fields with no address in there, so JS can do anything with the data.
Yeah. Okay. We can try that. So we'll use an OR operator and then give it a fallback value of NA. Still says current row.address is undefined. Not a bad idea though. Something like that. There's a similar error, very, very close, like similar situation where that would actually work, but this is not quite that.
Yeah, I think he's saying that the lack of data, so we need to give some sort of else to put in there.
Yeah. Okay.
I think he's
So
in the right
let's
track.
definitely on the right track. It is something to do with the missing data there. So I think he may have noticed this column here where we don't have an address object. So
Yeah.
that's definitely something to do with it. But this approach did not work with the OR operator and then an extra value. So we'll get rid of that. And I think we should go ahead and solve this one if we don't have another guess. So in this case, what you can do, what's happening is the JavaScript engine, as it's evaluating this code, it's looking for an address object and trying to go into a property of that, but there is no address. It's not defined. This is an error coming from a single row of the table. I think Sanjiv might have got the answer here. So this is a single row of the table. The error that we're seeing is talking about the entire data set. So most of the rows would be fine. If I actually had a query that only returned the first couple of rows here, this would probably work. It's this row that's throwing it off, or any other. I think I might have a few that are missing. So Sanjiv just mentioned the ternary operator, which is a question mark. That's pretty close, but there's more than one use of the question mark in JavaScript. And ternary is the operator that's like 3 conditions. If this is true, do this, otherwise return that. So close, you're really close, Sanjiv. A question mark does actually fix this, but this is optional chaining, not a ternary operator.
So we got one in the chat. I don't know if we want to try that before we. I mean, I know we fixed it, but does this one also fix it? It's simpler with just the question mark before the the state, obviously.
Yeah. Well, we can combine them. So
Yeah.
optional chaining has resolved the error of trying to reference a state property inside an address object that does not exist. That is no longer giving us an error, and the table widget error here is gone. But these fields say null.
Right.
The other suggestion here is about giving it a fallback value, which we tried the first time. Now that we have the optional chaining, we can combine those, and this is working now. Whereas before, without optional chaining, it doesn't even try. It's just giving me that error that the address is not defined. So first you have to have optional chaining so that the left side of the OR operator is something that can actually be evaluated. It's not going to come back as an error. It's just going to give null, So once that is a valid thing that can be compared in an OR operator, now it uses the fallback value. It just won't do it when the first half is an error. So kind of nuance there, different uses of the question mark. Sanjiv mentioned the ternary operator, and I have another post on the portal I think would be good to mention here. So there are lots of uses of a question mark in JavaScript. There's the one we just saw for optional chaining. There's the ternary operator, like Sanjiv mentioned, that is a condition. If it's true, return this. Otherwise, there's a colon, and then you return the third operator. And then there's 2 question marks. If for, I think it's called nullish coalescing. I'll have to check my own article that I wrote on that. But if you want to put up a link for that one, do you have that handy, Kevin?
Yep, should have it around here. I'm showing that on the screen.
So there are multiple uses of that question mark operator. It's real handy to know them for debugging things like this, especially when you have incomplete or just messy data. And so I have a few other examples that are all kind of related, just like with the SQL. They were similar, but kind of different cases. So before we go into the next couple examples, I want to show the underlying data that's causing these issues, just so you know what you're looking for. I actually called this array messy data because I am screwing it up on purpose.
It's messy data for sure.
So we got.
that could be the case about an API response or an SQL query. So
Yeah.
not that far away from the real life.
Yep. Okay. So the first object here is complete, just so you can see what one should look like. Now here is a top level property of the object. So it's not nested, right? The property's there, but the value is null. So that's one type. Then there's the property itself is missing completely. There is no .email. Here there is a .phone, but it's null, which is different than it just not being there altogether. And then it's another case where it's a nested property. If that nested property is null, then the thing you're putting a dot in front of, is null. Whereas here, here's one that's nested. So it's not the top level property, it's .zip, and then this one's null. Or you could have the zip completely missing. So there are different ways that your data structure could be null or undefined, whether it's that first level property you're trying to access or something nested. And all of those give you a little bit different error. The error message that you'll get back, or if you're trying to loop over it in JavaScript, you're going to get different clues back in those errors. And it's just good to know what you're looking for and to, pay attention. Is the property completely missing, or is it just null? Or is it a nested property that's missing? And those will all behave a little differently. So we're going to look at a few other cases based on that data.
All right.
Okay.
Perfect.
I think that's the only one I wanted to do on the table widget here. So now we're looking at a list widget. And okay, here we have individual widgets instead of a table. And the names are all complete. Email, it doesn't matter if it's missing because it's a top level property. So this widget is looking for current item.email. When we did this at a nested level of a property, current row for a table instead of current item, but we went to current row.address.state, and that was an error because it's a nested property inside there. Here, email is fine, and it's missing on some of these, but there's no error. Okay. Now we get over to the city state. Here I'm trying to combine these two, and I'm not getting an error. Okay, this is evaluating. It's a little different than the table widget, but this says null for the state. So it's not really an error, but it's not the data I want to see either, right? Here, city state, it's like city undefined. So what I'm trying to figure out is how can I make this either display some fallback value here or just not display anything, something besides the word null and undefined. So that's where we're at on this one. Any ideas from the community what we can do here to evaluate this? And we can give it a blank value or just say NA, or, how do we go about not showing null or undefined here?
Yeah, this can be a bit similar to the previous one, but again, we need a solve. So if you have an idea about how we could solve this, maybe you can zoom in a little bit more, Joseph, and let's keep this screen. There you go. Let's keep this screen for a while, and I'm gonna keep an eye on the chat in case somebody wants to help us also with this null issue.
While we're waiting, I'm going to refactor this to use a template literal. So currently I'm just concatenating. I'm using a plus sign and adding this value plus an empty space and then adding the next value. It's not too much longer or harder to read this way, but if you have to combine a bunch of fields, it really becomes kind of cumbersome to have to do plus space plus this plus every time. So instead, I'm going to use what's called, we'll use backticks and then a template literal. So to use a template literal, the string that you're inside of should be wrapped in backticks. And then each thing that you want to be a variable that you can reference and evaluate JavaScript inside this string, you wrap that with curly braces and a $sign in the front. Notice how that $sign changes the formatting. It goes from being a string, which happens to have curly braces in it, to a string that's going to evaluate this part as JavaScript, and then anything else that you put in there can just be like a plain string. So I could do a space or comma space for the city, like city, comma, space, and then the state. So here, wrap that in curly braces and another $sign. So we have 2 template literals now. Let's see if that changed anything over here. Still null and undefined. So this is just a different approach, a little easier. There's no plus signs here, and I can just merge all those together. But it didn't solve the issue where we're returning null or undefined. So any ideas from the community here?
We haven't gotten any message yet, so let's just
Okay.
give it 30 seconds,
Cool.
and then we're gonna solve it.
We've already had a pretty close situation or a suggestion here from a different error. So
Yeah, it's pretty similar.
and in this messy data, I have only left the state out. I think they all have if there's an address object anyway, they all have a city. So we really just need to fix the state.
Right. So how do you build this table? Just to give 30 seconds. I mean, this is not a table widget, so you use like a custom widget or
Oh, it's just a list widget.
list?
And then outside the list widget, because this is the first row of data, right?
Mhm.
And that's the top of the list widget. So I just have several text widgets above the list widget, and then a container around all the labels and the list to make it look like it's all one thing. The container is really just for looks, but it does help tie it together to where it looks like it's all one widget.
That's cool. So we got a couple of messages also from Sanchez. He said, "Can we use the tree equal operator and ternary operator to evaluate the null value?"
Let's see. We could check to see if it was equal, if it equals null or undefined. Yeah, we could say if it equals undefined and then use a ternary operator. That's a little verbose, but let's try it. So here's the item we're checking, and a ternary operator would say if something's true, then return whatever. I thought I copied that here. Copy. So you have the question mark for your test, the thing that you want to return if it's true, a colon, and then the thing that you'll return if it's false. Let's see. Now that does work. It's showing NA here, and it looks like it has worked for the ones that were null and the one that was undefined. Okay. So that does work, but I'm repeating current item dot address dot state as a condition,
Right.
and then again as a value to return, and then as the NA. So it works. Oh, it looks like Don has another suggestion that's a little shorter. So instead of checking if it's there and then saying to return it or return this, we can just use an OR operator. And let me make sure that we don't need optional chaining on top of that. That looks like that did it on its own. So this nested property is missing. Some of them are even missing the address altogether. It's not just the nested state that's missing, but the entire address object. But here we can use a template literal with an OR operator inside of it, and then we're giving it that NA value as a fallback. Cool. Okay, so we got it there right at the end, Don.
Right.
That's the solution I was looking for. Sanjeev, that also worked. It's just a little more verbose, and this is, one less time of having to repeat the first column here.
Yeah. So Don, you already won. You can continue to participate, but hey, we'll send something else in the same package. You already win. because you help us with this one as well. Joseph, what do we got? What else we got in this lineup? Do we have
Yeah.
anything else?
Okay, so I've got one more, probably the last one we have time for because it's a little more involved. I wasn't sure if we'd get this far. But what I want to do is make a drop down of all of the values from this company, and then make the table filter off of it. And I don't know if we'll get that far, but we're going to run into a few errors before we can even get this drop down working. So that's kind of the focus is just building the drop down. I don't know if we'll get to the filter part. But let's see what I have so far. So the first approach here, the select widget wants an array of objects with a label and a value. And so I have my messy data and I'm just mapping over the data to return an object with the label, taking that value from the row.company, and then the value, both the label and the value are the same thing. It returns something, it is the right data structure, but I'm getting a couple different errors here. So I told it to look at the label and then the value, and here I'm getting this error, duplicate values found. It must be unique values. Same thing with either property, and they're the same value. Kind of confusing because the property name is value, but they have the same key value. So we could try to solve this right here, but this is about the most code I ever want to try to write right here directly. Like we can just reference this, write it in a JS object, and then reference it here. So if I've got some data and I want to connect it, I might do like a map or a filter, one step kind of thing. But beyond that, that's just too much, and I got to go write the code somewhere else. So that's what we're trying to do. Now we're going to come over here, and I have basically the same thing right here. Take the messy data, map over it, and then return an object with a label and a value coming from that company. Before we get into the error, I just want to call out one thing here. Look at the syntax. This is slightly different than I did in the other area. So we have an arrow function. Here's the parameter I'm passing in, which is a row, the arrow, and then I'm returning an object. And you can see it gives me back an array of objects here. I want to look at the original. Here, this is a multi-line arrow function. So you've got the arrow and then open and closing parentheses. Then you want to return something. So there's open and close curly braces again for the object itself. So it's curly braces, return, curly braces, and then close both of those. A little more verbose to type all that out. If you're trying to return an object directly, that's all you're doing is returning an object and there's no other like mapping or multi-line steps in there that you need to do, then there's a shorter syntax for that. So that's what I'm using over here. The thing is you have to wrap it in parentheses, because if you tell an arrow function to return something, and then the first character after that is a curly brace, it thinks that's the start of the open and closing of a function. It interprets these curly braces as something else. So to make this shorter and not have to use the word return and two sets of curly braces, you can return an object directly, and the parentheses tell it that these curly braces are for an object instead of the open and close of a function. So little side thing I wanted to throw in there. We have the exact same return value here. So I'm going to bind that right here. So instead of looking at the messy data directly and then mapping it, what did I call that? Select company. Okay, so same deal, mapped over the data. I've got an array. It looks like it's working, but it doesn't like it. We got duplicates. So how would you go about resolving the error? There's different ways you could go about deduplicating it. Just want to hear what the community has here first.
Sure. Let's give it a couple of minutes and see if somebody in the chat can help us to work out this duplicate thing.
And somebody might mention one that solution that we can't do in this case, because this data is just some hard-coded JSON right here. If we were talking about SQL, this is how I would do it. You want to select distinct from some field. So I'm kind of giving the answer here if we were doing SQL. You don't want to map over all the data. You don't download everything with a bunch of duplicates and then try to use JavaScript on the client side and wait to loop through all that stuff just to get a unique array. If you can do that on the server side, do it. Like anytime you're working with SQL and you can do a distinct list or an average or total or whatever that is, it's so much more performant to let the server do that than it is to try to download all the data and do it on the client side. But that is not an option with this data set because we're not querying a database. It's just an array right here. And if you're working with an API, probably the same thing. Some APIs support some query strings, like it's not an actual SQL thing. It translates it, but you could send a string and say, here's my query. And the API, sometimes they can do totals or averages. That's pretty rare though. Most APIs, it's like an endpoint that can, just do CRUD, create, read, update, and delete, but it's not going to give you back those aggregate functions. So Don says he thinks he's got it, but he wants to give someone else a chance. Yeah, we're going to be sending quite a few swag, a little bit of everything his way. So
Yeah. I mean, if you have the solution done, send it over. At the end, also, this is about who makes it first. Um, and I think that the fact that you have been so chatty today, I think we love it. We kind of love to have this type of interactivity with our community, and being able to help out in no way. Maybe somebody who's watching this doesn't have the answer, but in future is going to face some of these issues or something similar while trying to manipulate data and send back to a drop down or a list or a table or any of the tons of widgets that we have in our platform. So what he's saying is we need to turn the return data into a set.
yep.
So returns unique data.
Okay. So set, that's definitely one way to do it. When you use a set, it's just like an array, but it cannot hold duplicates. You can try to put them in there and it just deduplicates itself. That's what the set does. So when you create a new set from an array, it will pull the duplicates out for you. Funny, he said he might be wrong in the syntax because I have to look it up half the time myself. But what you want to do is take an array, start out with an empty array. So I'm going to delete that. To use a new set, you put the items from an array into a new array and declare it as a new set. You've got to use the spread operator. So we want to take the spread operator and create a new set from this array that has duplicates. And I'm not quite sure if that's the right syntax. Maybe it is. Oh, that has duplicates. Label value. It's not giving me an error though. So there's the spread operator, which goes on an array. Maybe we want to put that in here. Spread it inside of the new set. I have to look up this format every time. So that is not the exact syntax. But there's a easier approach I like to use. New set is fine. I should probably learn the syntax and not need to look it up every time. But I like to use Lodash. So there's a unique function.
I was about to say that we have Lodash. In our platform. Like you can bring any JavaScript library into Appsmith, but Lodash is already there.
And so, Don, that's a perfectly valid answer that you got there. But man, I got to look up the syntax every time and figure out where the new keyword goes and where the dots and all that stuff. So there's unique. I think that's for an array. Unique by, and then we'll pull up the docs here for Lodash. Let's see. So Lodash is installed by default. There's all the libraries that are installed are right here, plus you can install more. And then there's a link to the docs here. And so we're looking for unique. And there are a few different ones. There's unique by. And so this takes an array and then something that you're going to use to iterate over it. It can just be a property name, or it could be a function that you want to run on each one. But that's a shorter way to reference that. Let's get back to the editor here. Unique by, and then we're checking its label. Or you could do the value, but they're duplicates. And there it is. Now we're getting a deduplicated list. So let's see what the select widget says now. This field is not giving me an error. It's showing an evaluated value. Let's see. I'm so zoomed in, it's kind of hard to navigate. Here it is. Okay, so it is it's a unique set, but one of them has no value. It's completely empty. So you're going to get a different error for that then when you try to go set the value or save it back to the database. So you might want to, you could filter those out before you use unique. You could do it after. You could use new set, and I think it's still going to be in there if you use new set. So you'd still want to filter. So maybe here we could do .filter, and these are select options. So I'm going to call it op, where I wonder if that'll work because it's an empty object. Filter where it's true. The null one's still there. Okay. So where op.value is not null. Okay. And now we got rid of it. So a couple steps to that one. And this is pretty common when you're mapping over some data to generate a drop-down list. There's incompletes in there. There could be typos, whatever. There's probably going to be duplicates, when you query the full list. So a couple different things you have to do to the data. Transform it, map it from the original objects to just label values. Then deduplicate. However, deduplicate first if you're using SQL. Just get it back from the server as a deduplicated list to begin with. And then you might have to filter out ones that are null. So couple different steps on that one, but I think that's a fairly common thing that comes up with selects. So it could be a select in a table widget or a standalone one like I have here on the list. So I think that's about all we have time for. Do we got any questions or any final things here we want to go over?
We don't have any questions. If you have questions, let us know in the chat. But it is incredible how time passes. I mean, it's
Yeah, that went
about
quite
an
fast.
hour live, and we could continue, but we want to be mindful and respectful about your time. But if you don't have any questions, you can also reach out to us on Discord, on the community portal. But I think it was very insightful. We went over some of the nonsense and things that can happen as you're building your own application. Now, there's this thing about AI, which we could just ask AI and probably could help us about this. But also, it's good to keep our knowledge up to date and understand what the heck are we building and how are we building.
Mhm.
Because, ChatGPT or something like that can help us a lot, like writing code, but also, is it performant? Is it cohesive to our application? Which is something that we're going to be talking about in the spring launch event. In case you weren't here at the beginning of this stream, let me just bring that up here. Yeah, we got the Appsmith build event, Appsmith deploy. Sorry, Appsmith deploy event happening June 19th, and it's going to be very focused on performance. So we're going to talk about things like this: how to make your application not only work but also to be performant. Also, we're going to talk about Git, continuous delivery, continuous integration, how to integrate your Appsmith workflow into your software development lifecycle, which is something that a lot of companies needs to do to stay compliant and secure. So we're going to talk about a lot of things like that. So make sure to to subscribe, to go to the website, RSVP for that event. But I think we don't have any questions, Joseph. I think we can start doing a closure here.
Cool. Well, all right. We got a few winners. Got some swag to send out. Appreciate
Yeah.
everybody joining. This was a fun workshop. It's a different approach, one that we haven't done before. So hope it was helpful. Let us know in the comments, and if you want to see more like this, we'll come up with some more debugging. We didn't do much with APIs, so I think we could do that more next time.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much, Joseph, for your time. Everyone who joined today, thank you so much. We got around 35, maybe I saw 40 people live, so I think it's cool. And everyone who participated and sent your messages and your options to fix these issues, thank you so much for participating. We're gonna be sending this swag soon, and yeah, keep an eye on the upcoming events. We got obviously more events live and more videos, so subscribe to our YouTube channel because we got a lot of videos being published. We got coming up about workflows, reusable packages, Appsmith AI, and much more. So thank you so much for joining today, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye bye, everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.